a interview with Mark Gudgel. He is running for mayor in Omaha. And part of the reason why that's relevant to the Twitch sphere and part of the reason why I'm covering it is, of course, because DGG is currently, working on a canvassing effort with Mark. So that means that there are people from the DGG community, which is Destiny's community, that are headed out to Omaha, knocking on doors and doing what they can to volunteer for that race. Now, there's a lot going on with the Omaha race insofar as there's quite a few candidates on Mark's side of things that are all kind of competing for that place on the ballot. And, of all those people, I don't think that they have like the fundraising means to actually compete economically with with the other side of the aisle. There's a lot of money being funneled into this race on the other side. That means that a lot of the success or failure of the people that are in the lefterly direction is going to be based on their ground game and how well they're able to kind of enthuse the people of Omaha and get them out there and voting. And kind of building on that, one thing that I like that's in Mark's proposals is that he wants to move the mayoral election for Omaha back to when people are voting for the president. That way you can kind of, piggyback off of that, and you don't have to get people like riled up about another election that happens 6 months after the presidential one. And little policies like that are kind of what interests me about him and are going to be some of the things that we dig into with him. Some of the questions that I have prepared are a bit like nitpicky and detail oriented. Like I'm interested in knowing how Mark knows about some of these problems at a technical level and how Mark kind of plans on fixing them. I've been reassured that he, is able to answer, technical questions at the level which I'm going to ask them. So that's going to be really fun. Beyond that, of course, we're going to touch upon his rhetoric and kind of talk about how if you're running in a place where they've been voting kind of for the opposite party for a while, and the people of Omaha seem to be interested in policies that are kind of different from the ones you want to push, how is it that you're able to get them on board with, some policies such as LGBTQ, stuff like that. I think you guys would get what I'm getting at. We'll kind of go into more detail when Mark gets here in about half an hour. But until then, I'm going to leave you guys with a little bit of music while I work on stuff in the background and go over my notes again. This interview is kind of one of the more important things that I think I'm going to have done on stream, because this is a real race and this is a guy who really wants to be the mayor, and I want to do that justice. So I'm going to keep going over my notes in the background. I'll give you guys some music to kind of relax to, but that's the plan for today. We're going to kind of pick apart some of the stuff that Mark wants to do and ask him about, how you got info about that, and, how do you figure out how to navigate the levers of power to try and make those changes, and what is the plan there. And after that, then going into kind of rhetorically, I want to ask him questions that he's not getting asked all the time. This isn't like a huge deal for him necessarily, but it is kind of a big deal for me. So I want to take the opportunity to do some stuff that I'm not seeing done and ask some questions that, based on his other live streams and his other panels that he's done with the other mayoral candidates, I kind of want to give him some refreshing questions and open him up in a way where maybe he's able to talk more in terms of how he's thinking about things. On this stream, we talk about perspective theory quite a bit, how, I'm interested in what are the points that people are holding very, very close to their face when they're looking at every single issue. What are the points that are bouncing around in their mind? How are they actually, reasoning their way through things? And by asking some of these questions to Mark, I hope to get a better idea of that so I can kind of better understand him as a candidate. And who knows, maybe if maybe if I'm like thoroughly enthused, I'll actually like, hop on a flight down to Omaha and whatever. I wasn't able to make it, to the last few canvassing events that they've done in Omaha. I did go to the Georgia one. So I don't know. We'll see. It should be fun. Anywho, I'm going to go ahead and throw on the music and you guys can chill out. To the VOD people, hello and welcome. We'll be on in a bit. One thing to keep in mind for today's talk is that it's sort of like an AMA. So if you guys are able to post some things in the chat, open up your message with @booksmarts if it's a question for Mark, and I'll take a look at it. To kind of catch up on what's going on in chat right now, using your platform for good? Yeah, a little bit, for sure. Off topic, no need to answer. What's your favorite things to put in a burrito? Crunchy fries are good to put in a burrito. I feel like when fries are soft, it's not as good. I would rather have like chunky potatoes than I would like French fries that are soft. But when the fries are crunchy, I think it adds a good bit. They just need to be real crispy, crunchy. So that's one thing. Another thing would be any kind of wet meat like barbacoa or I don't know, carnitas. That's like good shit to put in a burrito. I like wet meat in a burrito. Also, like if you have like good beans or good rice, I think that can make like a huge difference in a burrito. Like I've put fancy rice in a burrito before, and I feel like that makes a huge difference, especially if there's not a lot of like moisture or other things to like throw off the rice. I think people are kind of sleeping on like good rice in a burrito. It can make a big difference. I hope he plays the song Bonito again. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we could do that. It just means that I would get demonetized. um, should we just play it? Fuck it, dude. Let's play some Jarabe de Palo. We'll just fucking get demonetized. Who cares? Here's Bonito by Jarabe de Palo. This will get us kind of hyped. Let's go ahead and do that. So that was Jarabe de Palo. He does a lot of really, really good shit. A lot of his music is like really awesome. Hold on one sec while I get us to the right dingle bop here. Okay, so one weird thing is the chat isn't working, and I have no idea why. I've tried to fix it in the background, although I think that's going to work out in our favor for today, because today, like the title implies, we're going to be talking to Mark Gudgel, who is running for mayor in the city of Omaha, Nebraska, in the United States of America. So we're going to be hopping on Zoom with him later. Pronouns are he, him for anybody who is interested. And then if you have questions, like I said earlier, just at Booksmarts and then write whatever the question is. And I'll be writing those down. So even if I see it and it's not the moment to ask, I'm going to be putting it down on the side. Now, your boy is going to be very, very stressed with this interview because I personally think it's like really important. I don't want to fuck it up. I have like 3 pages of notes. I don't know if I'm going to get through all the questions that I want to get through. They're a bit all over the place. I haven't had enough time to like organize them into groups. So I'm going to try to see if I can naturally move my way through the different questions as we kind of proceed with the interview. But if I were to generally categorize them, we have policy questions. We have like personal questions about kind of how did he get involved politically, who are his role models, things like that. And then we have things that are that are kind of based around the DGG experience and working with them. So we kind of have all of those going on. Why do people happy? Good luck. Thank you. So like I said, we're kind of just waiting on hearing back from his team and figuring out when they're all ready to go, and then we'll hop on and do that. Hopefully no technical problems. Fingers crossed. The chat thing is ominous already, that's not working, and I have no idea why. Yesterday we broke the computer and I had to open it up and figure out what was going on. It looked like a drive had become disconnected or something, but I checked the connections on everything, replugged and unplugged and replugged everything. Hopefully we don't have any problems with the computer. Yesterday the stream abruptly ended when I fucking threw my hands apart and knocked the computer, and everything turned off. The entire computer froze. So let's hope that I didn't do any like serious damage to the computer. That we'll kind of figure out as we get into it. But anywho. Tech smarts, yeah. Can you ask this? What about the rhetoric you used when speaking to the wider public and media that's like a super duper basic question. So yeah, stuff like that we're going to get into. I'm not super interested in like the rhetoric he's using when speaking to the public. I want like much more specific questions. So like a specific question that I'm going to ask him in regards to rhetoric is, what is the difference though between talking to your constituency that doesn't care about some of the issues that you're pushing, and like how do you get them on board with that, right? Because not every bit of his constituency is going to care about every single one of these policies. Hell, he's kind of hinted that some of them may actually be so disinterested in them that it may like negatively impact his ability to convince them to vote for him. So like I'm interested in something like that. Like if you hit an Omahan who doesn't really care about the legalization of marijuana, for instance, and that's really not something they care about, or an even better example, what if we have somebody who's down for the general idea of deregulating the police? I mean, not deregulating, sorry, of like defunding the police, but they aren't on board with like putting forth funds into like social services or behavioral health services. How do we get those people to see that these two things are connected and that investing in one impacts the other? Another good example, kind of building off of this one, is what if somebody is totally down for police reform, but they don't understand how transportation and changes in transportation impacts police reform. Things like this. Like, when do you decide that it's cool to connect those things? When do you not? Random shit like that. So that's kind of the stuff that we're going to be going through. Ready when you are. Join the call when you're ready. Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and see. Did you already give me a link to the call? Oh, you did. Okay, awesome. Zoom link for Mark. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and jump into that right now. And let's do that. Yep. All right. And let's see here. I'm going to switch to this. Hopefully this looks okay. Oh, I have to download it? No, I should be able to just open this here. Oh, hold on. While I figure this out. I thought I could just launch the meeting through the web app, but apparently they don't allow that anymore. Okay. It's already not going good. No, I quit task. There we are. Okay, and then I'm going to join with Peter Audio. OBS virtual camera. Why is my OBS virtual camera not working? There we go.
It's already.
He heard me scream, dude. It's no good. Awesome.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey,
How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
We're good. Just wanted to introduce you and then I'll hop off. Obviously, This is Mark Gudgel, the man himself. So hope you guys have a nice conversation. I'll talk to you later. Bye,
Awesome.
guys.
Bye.
thank you.
Cool. So how are you doing today, Mark?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. Are you Mr. Book, Mr. Smarts? What do you go by?
You could call me Book. That works.
Book. All right. I didn't know to what degree the anonymity was important here. So.
Yeah, not too much. If it's more comfortable for you to call me Noah, you're more than welcome to. And then Mark is good for you, or should I call you Mr. Gudgel?
Please, Mark.
Awesome. Kind of starting on that. What makes you prefer being called like by your first name over being called by your last name?
Honestly, so I'm a classroom teacher, right? I'm a high school English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also I'm a professor in a graduate school. Sometimes, not currently because something had to give when I was going to become a candidate. But, I think accessibility to a person is genuinely extremely important. I have a doctorate. I don't ask people to call me that. And in fact, I kind of joke about this sometimes, but if I make somebody call me doctor, you can tell I think they're a real asshole. So, ultimately, whether it's as a classroom English teacher or as, mayor of Omaha, I want to be accessible to people. I want people to be able to just, see me and be able to be like, hey, I kind of want to talk to you about this thing. That's the relationship I like to have with my students,
And the reason why I'm starting with that and kind of mentioning that is on Twitch, I'm known for kind of talking with people about the rhetoric and about optics. And oh, hi.
So sorry. I told you had to go to bed. Zoe, can you say hi to Book?
Hi.
There are, yeah. The view I have here is, yes, there are two. I need you to go to bed. Daddy's doing a thing. Don't make me call your mom. Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Her the prop, but she's just the most adorable thing. You really have to bed now, okay? Well, I know, but I have to do this, and I want to. I need you to go to bed, honey. Good night, Zoe. I'm sorry.
No problem. It's good to meet the reason that you're running, because I had heard that mentioned in another interview as well, that kind of part of the reason that you're getting involved in this and that you want to kind of change the trajectory of Omaha is because of your kids, and you do want to, create a better place for them to live in, and that's going to have more opportunity for them. So I don't know. It's kind of wholesome. I'm sure the viewers like that anyways.
Just thinking to myself, I hope you're recording this. I'd love a clip of that, actually. If for no other reason than maybe like to play it at her wedding,
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hopefully by that point we'll be able to call you Mayor Mark, so that'll be awesome. Um like I was saying before, I cover rhetoric and optics on Twitch. So I talk about the way that people are communicating, little decisions that they're making, how that's coming off to people. Recently, there's kind of been a viral clip of Bernie Sanders from way back when talking about why he wants people to address him by his first name, and he mentioned a lot of the same things you did. So I'm wondering, are you influenced by Bernie or any other, candidates or representatives or senators or mayors or anybody else that's kind of influenced your own style?
Sure. I frequently say that it was too recent, right? But "not me, us" is the best campaign slogan I've ever heard.
Mm.
I love that because it embodies things that I believe. This I guess I get to be the face or the voice of this movement that we've created, but it's just not about me.
Mm.
I like teaching English, and frankly, I'm really content to be a father and a husband. Um, but I'm concerned about the direction of our city, and so as I said, we've started a movement, and I guess I get to be at the head of it, but it's just not about me at the end of the day. It's about us, and it's about our future, and I really believe that. So, in that way, Senator Sanders or Bernie, I suppose, has influenced me a great deal. Um, when I think about rhetoric, since we're on the topic, uh, Mayor Pete Buttigieg or Secretary Pete Buttigieg and President Obama both come immediately to my mind um, as people I would never want to go toe to toe with in a debate. I think if you told me I got to argue that gravity worked and Pete Buttigieg had to argue that it didn't, I still don't want to have that argument.
Mm.
That guy's good. Um, you know, um, and so I think that from a rhetorical standpoint, I find myself heavily influenced by those two, and by Bernie Sanders, who is always so incredibly candid and straightforward about what he's saying, and that's a value of mine as well. It's something that I think I admired once in Chris Christie before it became so exacerbated in Donald Trump. There was always something about Chris Christie that was just blunt in a refreshing way.
Mm.
But it became too much.
Yeah.
Quickly. I like to be blunt and open and honest with people, definitely.
Mm. Well, on that topic, are there any policies that you're pushing or discussions you've had where you feel like being blunt is something that has helped you get across to more people or has helped you like communicate the ideas that need to be in order to like facilitate change?
Absolutely. Really early, and I can think of a lot of examples. I'll give you one that comes immediately to mind. Really early in the campaign, which that's relative, I suppose. We rolled out our first policy, which to me was just incredibly low hanging fruit. Currently, Omaha holds two municipal elections separate from the presidential primary and the presidential general. And, I quipped last night in an interview, I said, and there's a word for that, and it's stupid. We waste hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this. And in exchange, we get voter suppression, which is probably, in fact, what the current administration is attempting to buy. And there's your candor. Hundreds of thousands of dollars get pumped into two separate municipal elections to guarantee that our voter turnout is astronomically low. And that is bad for democracy. It's bad for the budget. It's bad for the city. I'm going to change that. We're going to overhaul the city charter. We're going to amend it so that we can sync our election. And it will be good for democracy. It will be good for the budget. It will be good for the people. The only person that's going to get hurt there is me. I will lose, 6 months off my first term, and that's just not a big deal to me.
And I know that you hinted at maybe some of the reasoning behind why you're having the elections later in Omaha, and that may be helping kind of the incumbents there. Are any people on the kind of progressive side of things also kind of worried about losing those 6 months of their own term? Or has everybody that you've spoken with kind of been on the same page about moving that election for the benefit of like future, your future constituency?
You know, what I'll tell you is that I have been surprised that, to my knowledge, none of the other Democrats or independents running in this nonpartisan primary have taken that idea and run with it.
Hmm.
And it may be because it is my idea and I led with it. That hasn't stopped one of my opponents from kind of constantly hijacking my ideas, but you know, there's that candor thing again, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a little surprised not to hear it, but I also kind of understand it in that, you know, the system as it exists is designed to heavily favor the incumbent. Think about it. When I win the primary on April the 6th, I'm going to have to pivot into a general on May the 11th, 35 days later. And I'm up against somebody who has an incredible war chest already, and who's backed by the GOP establishment here, which seems to have almost bottomless pockets. And I said this in a mayoral forum last night. They asked all the candidates. They said, "Are you raising enough money to be viable?" And you know, I said, look,
The money will not be there.
it will not. It doesn't matter how much I raise. I'll get outspent 2 or 3 to 1 by the incumbent. There's just no two ways around that. I said, look, if you think you're going to outspend the Ricketts political machine, then you're incredibly naive. You're delusional. These people own the Chicago Cubs. Right? Like, they bought the governor's mansion in Nebraska to play with it as a toy. And that's exactly what they're doing. That's who this family is. And so they will outspend me 3 or 4 or 10 to 1. I plan to spend $1 million in the general and get outspent 3 to 1. But we're going to win anyway because we have real ideas, real policy, real substance. We offer real change. We offer a better future. And that's what's going to win the election.
Awesome. On the topic of those big ideas and kind of trying to push those, I understand that at least some of your constituency kind of won't see eye to eye with you on all of the progressive things that you're putting forward, on all of the progressive policies. How do you help people see the connection between, for instance, public transportation and the way that the police are interacting with communities? Like, how do you explain that to the average voter that may not see eye to eye with you on it?
Sure. Well, it's complicated. There's no doubt about that. And I don't necessarily, I'll just say, need everybody to agree with everything that I say. In fact, it would be kind of irritating if they did. You know, one of my strengths as an executive was staffing not yes people. You know, I'm not looking for people who just want to pick a fight with me, but you know, I want people who will challenge the ideas every day and say, no, this isn't the right way to go about that. Do this, say this, think this, work on this, you know. And so, you know, you mentioned public transportation and policing, and it's not to say, you know, I think there's a clear bridge there, actually, in those two particular issues. One of the things that we know is that crime is not entertainment. Crime is the product of desperation and need. Occasionally, I suppose you find the sociopath who's just seeing what they can get away with. But the vast majority of criminal activity in this city and in this country and in this world is born of need. And much of that need is the product of poverty. And so if we want to link that to public transportation directly here in the city of Omaha, you know, I was sitting with another mayoral candidate in a coffee shop last weekend who I really appreciate, and having a similar conversation. And we looked out the window at a big old pickup truck, you know, and I'd have a hard time telling you what it was, an F something, I'm sure. And I said, what do you think that costs? And he said, well, I bet the payments are $500 a month, which I'm guessing is probably accurate. If your payments are $500 a month, and then you've got to put monstrous tires on it and change the oil and put gas in it, and it probably gets about 3 miles to a gallon would be my guess. Unless it's diesel, at which point it probably gets about 8, but it's destroying the environment, even faster. And you got to license it, you've got to insure it, and pay your taxes and all the other things you do with a vehicle, right? And we figured that thing was probably costing that guy $1,200 a month. Dear God, man, you can buy a house for that. You can buy a house and build equity and end generational poverty for that. And it doesn't have to be about a big truck. Your 1997 Dodge Neon that's fallen apart, that's going to shatter when it hits one of our potholes, is still costing you $150 a month plus all those other things. You're paying $500 a month for that. Well, what could you do with $500 a month? Could you reintroduce meat to your family's diet? Could you move from a 1-bedroom into a 3-bedroom? Or could you stop renting and purchase a home and seek to end generational poverty? What would you do with that money? And the only thing that as a municipal leader I have to do to make sure you have that money in your pocket is create a system in which you don't have to spend it on a car. Instead, you need to spend it. You can spend it on the things that you need, because our buses for once are good enough to get you where you need to be quickly and on time and safely. And so, I think we do the police a huge favor by offering people what they need to not have to spend every dime they have on a car.
I really like that explanation. It's like so artfully done, how you're connecting kind of all of the costs associated with the vehicle, and then you're looking at that kind of more holistic view of it and go, all right, so this is what it actually costs you. It's not just the per month on the car, it's not just the gas, not just like the effect on the environment. It's much more than that. And what else could that have been done? What is the opportunity cost of investing in that car and making this choice? Like to bring it back around to transportation, I'm curious, what are kind of the easier policies that you see yourself being able to implement, and what are some of the more difficult ones? I know that you've kind of outlined what you can do with these different policies to varying degrees, so I'm interested in like which ones you think are the easiest and which ones are the most difficult.
Sure. I think that there are some that are going to well, one thing I'll preface that by saying that I was in a meeting the other day and somebody said, well, there's a city council candidate who's released a policy about free Wi-Fi for the whole city, making the whole city wireless. And I said, is it a policy or is it a good idea? Because when my campaign says this is a policy, we're saying to you, we know how we're going to pay for this. We know that it can be done. We know how to pay for it. And without jacking your taxes through the roof, by the way, because nobody in this city can afford that right now. Very few can. The pandemic has hit us all very hard. And there's a big difference between a good idea and a policy. So all of our policies can be implemented. And if it's on my webpage and I'm saying we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And if I don't, run me out on a rail. And I'll count on the voters to do that, because I genuinely believe in democracy. But some of the easier policies, some of the low-hanging fruit, I think moving the elections is going to be relatively easy. It involves revamping the city charter, overhauling it a little bit, but I don't think that's terribly difficult to get done in 3.5 years. Another one, I was just in a policy meeting before I came here, and one of the policies we're going to release here in several weeks is to do with sex trafficking. Between the College World Series, the I-80 corridor, the Berkshire Hathaway events, human beings are trafficked in Omaha in a way that, of course, is horrific. And I think my words were, we need to send the message that if you're going to do that in Omaha, Nebraska, we're going to burn the world down around you. I don't care if you ever get out of prison if you are doing that to other human beings. And I may go ahead and show up at the county jail and kick you in the nuts for it. What on earth? I mean, this stuff, So some of those, you know, I don't think we're going to get any resistance on that. Whereas I imagine I will get some resistance when we overhaul the city charter. We're going to implement a public safety review commission. And that's going to mean a civilian board, ideally democratically elected over time, that's going to oversee police and fire. And I know I'm going to get some pushback. I don't care. You know, as a public school teacher, I answer to a board, and that's a good system. And no reason, you know, and you can go, well, you know, I frequently hear the argument like, well, you know, if you elect people to that board, well, they've never done the job. Most of the people on the school board aren't teachers. One person on the school board right now who used to be a teacher, to my knowledge. You know, and the other 6 board members were not, and I answer to all of them. So, you know, that is probably going to get some pushback, but I don't think ultimately it's going to be a struggle. I get some rhetorical pushback. I get some kind of like, I don't quite understand the policy pushback on free college tuition. Someone went after me the other day and they were like, I paid off my student loans. You should have to pay off yours. And I was like, dude, that's not what we're talking about. You know, like, that's not, I mean, sure, I do have student loans. I will pay them off. This policy doesn't affect me. I have a terminal degree. Like, this policy is about, you know, the 17-year-old who's about to graduate from high school who wants to be an electrician but doesn't want to go into debt to become one, and making their life better, and by extension making our city better. So, you know, I think people are going to push back on some of these, but ultimately our policies are well researched, and they're I think of them as promises that I'm going to deliver on.
Awesome. And to kind of build on that last point about education and about making it easier for that 17-year-old who wants to go into college. And I think like an important component of that is they want to go into college in Omaha, and they want to contribute, you know, intellectually and through their work to the city of Omaha. You talked, and I really like this from you, about fixing the trajectory of the city. I'm interested, what are the things that are kind of throwing off that trajectory? What are the things pushing the city in a direction that you don't like? And, you know, what are the direct steps that you're taking to make sure that that trajectory is better and that these people are staying in Omaha? We don't have things like brain drain.
Yeah. So I think the 2 biggest issues that threaten the trajectory of our city, outside of climate change, which is definitely a part of that conversation, but we'll set that one aside, and I'll say that the other 2 issues are brain drain, as you mentioned, young people leaving and never coming back. And I don't want to tell them they can't leave, right? If you get into Yale and you want to go get your degree at Yale, do it. It's a great school. I want you to have a reason to come back to this city and apply your talent here when you're done. So it's not about making sure nobody leaves. You know, it's not about trapping anybody. It's about making Omaha attractive. And that's the second piece, as well as our economy. I frequently hear these laughable things about, oh, well, we think the pandemic probably cost us $80 million. I'm like, you bonehead, the pandemic cost us $80 million last month. What are you doing? Like, our business, you know, we collect $35 million a year in restaurant tax, or we used to, but our restaurants have been so hurt. We have a great restaurant scene in Omaha, a really vibrant restaurant scene. I was just the other night at dinner on my anniversary talking with the head of the Omaha Restaurant Association and saying, look, you know, as mayor, I want to get a Michelin star in this city. And he's like, that's really hard to do. They don't do that in Omaha. I'm like, they're going to do it when the mayor pursues it as hard as I do. You know, because I think our restaurants need to be acknowledged. Our small businesses need to be acknowledged and celebrated, and most of all, supported by the people in the city. So our small businesses have really suffered in this pandemic, but our large businesses have been evacuating too. 5 years ago, we had 2 more Fortune 500 companies in Omaha than we do right now. 5 years ago, ConAgra left us for Chicago, and the reason they cited was brain drain. People don't like to hear it, and people will haw and hum about it, but that's the reality. And, you know, the second part of it is or the second business that left us was TD Ameritrade, which ironically is owned by the governor or his family, you know. And yeah, you would think maybe somebody could have done something about that. You know, he's too busy praying the gay away. And so ultimately, we find ourselves in a situation where our huge businesses are leaving, taking their jobs, taking their tax revenue, taking the reasons that people relocate here. You know, I mentioned ConAgra and TDA left. My wife worked for both of those companies over the course of her career. We need companies like that to want to be in Omaha. And you know, I'll add that I was recently speaking. I met, weirdest thing, I was flying back from Kigali, Rwanda, and I met a former mayor of Omaha on the Chicago leg of the flight, and we had a great conversation. So when I decided to run for mayor, I called him up. And one of the questions I asked, I said, what's to keep me as mayor from going to Manhattan, from going to Los Angeles, Seattle, expensive cities to live in, and pitching to Fortune 1000 CEOs and going, hey, let me talk to you about the great American Midwest. And let me tell you how I can cut your operating expenses by 70% tomorrow. And, you know, I said, what's to keep me from doing that? And he said, ambition. And, you know, our current administration clearly seems to lack that. I would like to assure the voters in Omaha that I do not. And that we're going to have to fight pretty hard to fix the problem of brain drain and to fix the problem of our companies leaving and our small businesses shutting down. But that's work I'm willing to do.
That's awesome. Like the food, I know that maybe some of the chatters don't understand, but like that's the one thing that I've heard back from a lot of the canvassers in Georgia is, or not in Georgia, this time around we're in Omaha, but like hearing back about the food was interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting, but everybody seems to say that the restaurants there are really great. That's why it was cool to see explicitly mentioned in your policies that instead of like buying from Starbucks for coffee or something like that, you guys are going to get it from local places, that all the food and stuff like that is going to come from local places. I don't know why that wasn't the case before. That seems like a very simple step to take.
You know, I think it requires some perspective, you know, like frequently you buy the cheapest thing you can get, right? But as I've said, like there will be no Folgers freeze-dried crystals served in City Hall when I'm there. And I think that comes from being the son of small business owners. Because I know coffee's roasted here. Well, I know my parents own a small bookstore on small town Main Street. And, you know, when people buy from Amazon, it destroys their business. But when people go out of their way, when people go, okay, I want this book, and I also like having a little bookstore on Main Street in my town, so I know I need to get the book there. Well, if I'm the mayor of this city and I like having coffee roasters and distilleries and you know, caterers and things like that in my city, damn it, I need to support them, right? And that's what we're going to do.
Awesome. And out of curiosity, have you seen any other cities that have tried to push like buying local and have had campaigns you've seen as successful that you kind of want to copy or learn from?
You know, what's so interesting, so many of my policies are rooted in things that we've seen done. You know, in the case of free college tuition for every high school grad, that looks a lot like the Pittsburgh Promise. It looks a lot like a program in San Francisco. Our Omaha policy dealing with our immigrants and refugees and helping them acclimate and be successful here, that's modeled after a program in Tennessee called My Nashville, or My City, which is in Nashville. When it comes to the buy local policy, actually, I think I get credit for that one. You know, I'm sure other people are doing it because it's not like it's a wild idea, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't remember being influenced by anybody other than just mom and dad, you know, who need people to shop at their store to keep it open.
One thing that I was also curious about, in hearing you mention the teacher, the Board of Education, stuff like that. Now, one thing I'm worried about with that police board is how much influence they do have over the decisions that the police department are making. I believe the verbiage in the documents that I looked at was they can make a recommendation to the police department in terms of disciplining their officers. How much power would that board have over the decisions of the police?
You know, I told you I just came from a policy meeting. The joke I always tell that's not really a joke is I have the idea, I take it to them, I go, here's what's right, here's what's just, here's what needs to be done. And they're like, okay, well, that's illegal. But, and then they figure out how to make it happen. So anything we would do has to be within the parameters of the law, obviously. So I don't know exactly how sharp I can make the teeth of that board. I do know that I want them to be able to do more than recommend.
Mm.
You know, I would say it's my personal opinion that if an officer unholsters their gun for any reason, that needs to be looked into. Not to say that they did anything wrong. Like, it's not an assumption of guilt. But if you're going to draw a gun on me, we need to figure out why and who's at fault here. And if there was a way to avoid that too. Anytime a weapon is discharged, right? I'd like to see that officer on paid leave until we get that sorted out. And that, you know, there are existing policies that cover some of that. But I ultimately think that the board, we need a board of people, ideally, like I said, elected civilians who will look into these things, hopefully from as neutral a perspective as possible. And really, I would hope just help our already good police force be much, much better.
I like that. Okay. I'm going to keep pushing on that just because I'm interested in the police reform. It is what a lot of people are talking about. With the police reform, how much of your kind of effectiveness in office is going to be based on your ability to work with the police and with the union, and how much of it is actually doing things like this review board or changes to the charter, or encouraging them to go after or not go after certain kinds of crimes? Like, how much of it actually comes down to working with the police versus like things you can do independently as mayor?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, I guess my answer is that the police in this city make up 900 of our residents. Our mayor has indicated she'd like to hire 100 more police officers. I don't believe that more officers are better officers. And nobody with access to the data who is literate believes that more officers lead to reduced crime. That's just not the case. So she's moving in the wrong direction there. And frankly, you know, the retirement pensions are not something we can pay for. We cannot hire another 100 officers and continue to allow people to retire in their 40s and die in their 80s and pay them for that entire period of time.
Right.
It's just untenable financially. And that's not the only reason not to do it, but it's a pretty compelling one, I think. But ultimately, the police officers in this city currently make up 901, 902 of our residents. I answer to 497,000 of our residents approximately. You know, no matter how old you are, no matter whether or not you can vote, if you live in this city, if you're a resident of Omaha, I answer to you as your mayor. And so in that sense, as far as I am concerned, the police are 900 and some of my constituents, and they matter as much as any other 900 constituents, but not anymore.
Okay. Like right now, is that a constituency that you are kind of working with like on a day-to-day basis, or what is the communication like with that 900, you know, number of people? Like what are some conversations you've had with the police, and kind of what is their take on some of your policies?
I have had conversations with individual officers off the record. I've had no formal conversations, and part of the reason there is I think neither of us is interested in playing games. They're not going to back me. The current administration has been very giving toward officers, and I'm sure they appreciate that very much, and I'm sure that the officers will support her as she runs. When I beat her, and it becomes a matter of let's work together, right? But until then, I think they're going to do what they can to keep me out of office, and I understand it.
Frustrating though it may be, I'd imagine.
You know, I'd love it. I'd love it if everybody just wanted to hold my hands and sing with me. You know, but I'm realistic.
Yeah. You know, given we understand this relationship you have with the police, I feel much more comfortable asking, so what's up with weed? I've noticed that it seems like we're doing everything that we can to kind of alleviate the criminalization of it. I understand your hands are tied on a lot of that. Like you can't just legalize it. I kind of pick up reading some of the information on your website and on other documents that it's like, we're going to do what we can here. I'm going to find everything I can do. But it seems like you're limited in some regards to how much you can help on that issue. What are some things that you're doing? What are some roadblocks you've hit on that topic?
Sure. You know, the biggest roadblock is that as the executive of a municipality, you can't do much from a direct standpoint. Like what I mean by that is I cannot decriminalize marijuana. I don't have the ability to do it. You know, I can't legalize it. But there are so many good reasons to advocate for this and so many things that I actually can do. And so I want to talk about some of those because I looked into this closely. And, you know, one of the things we know that many people need medical marijuana. And most of us who are my age or in my generation have come to terms with the fact that Officer Friendly was lying to us every week in DARE class. DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education, was the program I think implemented probably by the Reagan administration that was used to make sure I understood that if I ever had a glass of alcohol, if I ever had more than one glass of alcohol, excuse me, then I was going to be an alcoholic. And that if I ever used marijuana, that very soon I would be addicted to blow. And turns out that's not true. And yes, shocking, right? Son of a gun. But we know that there are people who need this. And we also know that there are people who enjoy it. And frankly, it's not nearly as harmful as cigarettes or alcohol, which are perfectly normalized and acceptable. To me, it's hugely an equity issue. We know who's getting pulled over. We know who's getting arrested. We know who's getting incarcerated. We know who's getting fined. We know who can't afford to pay the fines. And we know what they have in common. And that is ugly. And we can start as a municipality to put a stop to that. You know, there's the kind of the traditional brown bag you put around your liquor, right? Mm-hmm. The reason for that is so that a police officer can look at your brown bag and go, he's not hurting anybody, so I'll assume that's a Coca-Cola. When we all know it's not, right? And so I want to give our police officers, who I'm not, you know, I'm not an enemy of the police. I'm just probably not as friendly as Mayor Stother. And that may not even really be true at the end of the day. But, you know, I want to give the police in our city the discretion to be able to say, yeah, sure enough, that's a joint. Guy's not hurting anything. You know, and I frequently liken this to my role as a classroom teacher. You walk in and something's a little askew in regard to the dress code, right? And immediately I'm in a position where I have a choice. I can pick a fight with you and forever jeopardize our relationship and your ability to learn from me and my ability to do my job. Or I can let it go because it is not what we are here for. It is not the important part of my job. And it is not going to improve your day to point it out. And so, you know, I want the police to have the same discretion I do. I don't mess with the dress code much at all because I want to teach English And I want to help kids feel valuable and empower them. And I want our police officers to be able to do the same thing. Stop messing around with marijuana. It just doesn't matter. And so it's an equity issue. But there's another piece of this that I think is important as well. You know, and we've mentioned, I mean, the city's in a budget crisis from COVID, from mismanagement, you know, and other factors. Marijuana is a solution to that problem. I mean, our streets are impassable. Our potholes are a national joke. You know, I mean, we could put signs up on the city limits that said like "Welcome to Crater Lake," and people would believe it. This place is ridiculous. We can fix that. We can offer drug counseling and repair our roads and improve public transportation and offer more affordable housing, and we can do it all by taxing weed. So one of the things that I want to do as mayor of Omaha is to strongly advocate. So this year, just to give people a little bit of background, this past year, we were going to have that on the ballot. Hundreds of thousands of Nebraskans signed a petition, and there are only 1.9 million of us, saying, yeah, we should vote on that, right? And that's not voting in favor of it. It's saying, I believe in democracy. The Nebraska Supreme Court stepped up and said, we don't believe in democracy, and they didn't allow it on the ballot. I mean, you want to talk about activist judges? If anybody's ringing that dog whistle, that's who you're talking about, is the Nebraska Supreme Court. And so we didn't even get to vote on it. And so unicameral Senator Adam Moorfeld and others are strongly advocating to make sure that marijuana gets on the ballot in 2022. And as mayor of Omaha, I am in a fight like hell next to them to make sure that that happens, so that, again, we can address the equity issues, so that we can tax it, so that people can have the medical marijuana that they need or the recreational marijuana that they want.
I know that that the roads are a problem. That is another thing that I have heard from from the canvassers there. You mentioned trying to fix that through some competitive bids. And I've heard other candidates talk about how they've attended different kind of conventions and other sorts of meetings to try and get to the heart of what is going on with these roads, what is the path forward to fixing it, and why has it been this way so long? What's kind of your take behind the scenes on all of that? Like, how did you come to the conclusion of things like competitive bids? Where are you getting the information about that? And if other people were interested in this issue, you know, regardless of the outcome of the mayoral election, where can people learn more about that and kind of figure out why that is the case?
Sure. So, you know, I'll try to be a little succinct about this, but we'll roll that policy out in about a week. Tomorrow, today's Thursday. Tomorrow, typically we roll policy out on Friday. This one's actually available on the webpage right now, but this week's policy is the LGBTQ plus Bill of Rights, which is an extremely important one, just not what we're talking about at the moment. So next week's policy is going to be, and podcast that goes along with it. We always do a podcast, and check out this week's, it's great. But is to do with the roads. And there's a lot that needs to be done. And I hope that anybody who wins this election, I mean, obviously I hope it's me, or I wouldn't be spending, 18 hours a day trying to win this election. But, I hope that people will take that policy and use it, because it's good policy, and people will have access to the whole thing soon. But a lot of it comes down to common sense, what I would call Midwestern work ethic. You do the job right the first time, for goodness sake. And that's not the habit that we're in. We cut corners, we pave too thin, we use cheap materials. But there's a lot of really great technology available now. There are a lot of sustainable resources, plastics that can be used, recycled plastics that can be used to pave potholes, fill potholes. And then the other thing is that like Kansas City and some neighborhoods, or some cities, municipalities are doing things like, scanning for potholes in the fall, going, okay, where's the road weak? Okay, we're going to go seal here, because instead of fixing it later, we can seal it now. And so there are a number of things that we can do, and we'll roll out something comprehensive. Ultimately, it's going to be like a 20-year vision for actually fixing our city's streets. But there's one other piece of it that I think is deeply important that I hope everybody will cling to, right? Our public works department needs to stop widening the darn streets. You take a 4-lane road, you turn it into a 6-lane road, and it is now 50% more expensive to fix the holes in that road or to repave that road. right? What we need is not wider roads. We need better public transportation. The other thing our city does constantly is annex neighborhoods. And I'm telling people right now, until we can afford the streets that we already have, we're done annexing more streets. They'll still be there. I understand in the long haul why it's nice to have more taxable land, but the bottom line is we can't afford it. And this is not the federal government. You can't spend more money than you have, which is why our roads are embarrassingly bad. It doesn't have to be that way. It's the product of mismanagement.
Hmm. And that already answered one of the other questions I had, which was, compared to some of the other candidates, I noticed that you emphasize buses over roads, or buses over making things cyclable, or some of the measures the other candidates are kind of pushing for. Yet another thing that you mentioned was making municipal budget cuts that could very easily improve the transport. I know you said you're going to talk more about this next week, and I'll push your podcast for sure. Is there any kind of hint into that you could give us now, or a sneak peek about what are some budget cuts that you would be making, and how is that going to help with the public transport?
Sure. So one thing about Omaha, we actually are transitioning now to a regional transit authority, which is going to be a cool opportunity for our city for sure. But we currently run a fleet of about 150 diesel buses, and we need more buses to do what it is we need to do. So one of the things from a sustainability standpoint we need to do is transition those to electric. Part of my vision for paying for a lot of what we want to do is federal grant money that we should have available to us in higher supply now that we have a president and a Senate majority that I think are probably a little more politely, I'll say, in tune with reality. And so I think that they understand and recognize the need to fight climate change, and I believe that they're going to help us do it. But beyond that, there are some pretty simple budget cuts. And I said last night, and in another conversation that I thought was important, I'm going to take aside the heads of all of our departments, and I'm planning on adding cabinet heads. We need a director of sustainability, and we don't currently have one. And we need somebody to head up my education program. That's going to be a cabinet level post. So there will be additional cabinet posts, but I'm going to take aside all department heads and say, cut the fat. And if they tell me they can't find the fat, they are the fat. And we'll replace it with somebody who can find it. Because, the idea that government is bloated does not come from nowhere. It is sort of astonishing how much money gets spent and how little of it people see. And, so I think one of the things we can do, and an example I often use, I can drive my own car. Our current mayor may be capable of doing that, but chooses not to. That is an expense that the taxpayers should not have to absorb. I'm not personally Roman Catholic, but one of my favorite things about Pope Francis when he was the cardinal or an archbishop down in Buenos Aires was that he rode public transportation. He was a true person of the people. And I would like to be that. I want to be out and among the people. I was contacted today by a county employee, actually, and I won't get any more specific than that, who said, I work really not too far from where the mayor works, but I don't ever see this person. Would that be different if you were the mayor? And it was such a sincere question. I'll tell you, it really moved me. And I was excited as I wrote back to say, well, yeah, of course. Because I want to be a mayor of the people. One of the things, you met my daughter. I also have a son who I hope is asleep up there. And I don't want to give up being a dad to be the mayor. And I'm not going to have to, because if I'm at my son's ballet recital, if I'm at my daughter's soccer game, right, I'm still the mayor. And the parents of the other people in ballet or the other soccer players are my constituents. And we can watch our children have fun and perform while also talking about issues. And I can be out among the people and accessible. One of the things that's been pointed out recently, and I don't condone this, but frequently when our mayor goes out in public, she gets yelled at and chastised. And again, I don't condone that at all. But the other thing I would tell you is that if people think you're going to listen to them, they don't have to yell at you. And I want to be such a good listener that nobody ever has to yell.
Dang, that's like, I'm the rhetoric guy, so of course I love these little like things that you're ending your sentences with, and these little phrases, like little things like that. I feel like really help you come across like really good to people. And to kind of look at the flip side of that, some of the people that you're up against do not seem to realize the optics of the way that they're talking. On this issue in particular, I noticed that in one of the panels with the other mayoral candidates, people were talking about how I made a change in my life. I started actually going out there and I rode the bus a couple of times. And I'll tell you, like, I saw people on, like, I like it, and then somebody would talk right after them and they'd be like, well, as somebody who grew up here, I've been using bus my whole life. So, I didn't have to go out and do some experiment to figure out how the people are living. So in that regard, at least, some of these people are making your job a little bit easier, but you're certainly, helping yourself with little, things at the end of your sentences like that. I'm really starting to like that. Awesome. Well, that's most of what I have for you. I mean, is there anything that's not being asked in interviews like this that you wish you had more of an opportunity to talk about, or something you've prepped where it's like, surprisingly, nobody's asking about this, but I feel like kind of passionate about this. I wish I had the opportunity.
One thing that does come up occasionally, but didn't come up tonight that I'd like to talk about is uh, a policy that we've put together related to Omaha's refugee population and immigrant population. And this is deeply important to me. I think in part probably because of my work overseas, um, but mostly as a human being. You know, I I don't think we are typically forced to consider what leaving your home must be like, and knowing that it's permanent. Knowing that you're not going back and probably leaving. I mean, I'm sitting here in my library, right? I mean, it's my office with some bookshelves, but I mean, there's a lot of books, and it's funny to think that if I were in a situation where we decided tonight, my wife and I, we need to leave now, I'd be leaving all of this. I'd leave my books. I'd leave so much. You'd put what you could get into a suitcase, and you'd get your children, the things that matter the most, and you'd probably try to grab some food, and you'd go. And that food would be gone fast. And next would be anything you brought that you could barter. And by the time you got through the refugee camp, probably over the course of years, and then over an ocean, you need to be landing in a place and immediately feeling welcome. More than welcome, you need to be landing there and feeling loved. You need to be acknowledged. One of the things that I make it a point of doing is being at the airport whenever refugees arrive in Omaha, just to greet them. And typically, and this is, number one, that wasn't my idea. I have good friends who do that all the time. I'm frequently joined by Senator John Kavanaugh and others who, there are a lot of great people and some really wonderful organizations in Omaha, the Refugee Empowerment Center, Lutheran Family Services, and others. Most often I see students there, so it's not a me thing at all. Again, not me, us. This is not about me. But we show up at the airport and we just make sure. I mean, you think about that. If you've ever flown over the ocean, that's a bear no matter what. Even if you're not coming from a refugee camp, even if you're not moving, it's just kind of a pain to fly over the ocean. And they're landing in this new country for the first time. And the last several people I've greeted, they're landing in Nebraska in the winter, for God's sake. Like, none of this is easy. None of this is pleasant. And yet I think as a resident of Omaha, I need to go, yeah, but I know that you're here because it's better than what you're leaving. I know you're here because you're safer here. You probably left family behind. You left friends. You left home. And I want this city to do everything we can to make these people feel loved and to accept them, but also to benefit from their cultures, to benefit from their vibrancy, from their entrepreneurial endeavors, from their leadership. You know, there are some amazing people in this city, and I want to spearhead the charge of greeting them and making sure that they get settled in. And if people are interested in more about that, the policy is called Our Omaha. I was notified recently that someone's already using that for something else. So when I'm mayor, it'll be called something else. But ultimately, it's modeled after my city in Nashville, but it's got an Omaha flavor to it. It's bolder than my city, I'll say that, and I'm pleased by that. We're going to help people pay for those horrific tests that they have to take to become, you know, all the people make commercials about these tests, right? Like we all know as native born Americans, we all know we couldn't pass this test. And yet these people are asked to take it in their third language, right? And they have to pay $1,200 to do it. This city's going to help them do that. We're going to become the model city. We're going to become the city that every refugee and immigrant wants to be in. And you know what? They're going to come here. They're going to bring their culture. They're going to bring their work ethic. They're going to start businesses. They're going to employ our citizens. They're going to make this rich tapestry even richer. They're going to buy houses and pay taxes. They're just going to enrich the lives of everyone here and benefit in the process. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. So thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, I like it. I've kept my ear to the ground on other programs for like accepting refugees. I've found a few that were interesting, like one city, I forget, they were doing a program where you could sign up, you could pay this cost for the month, and you got to spend a night with a different family from a different country, and you got to eat a meal that was from where they're from. And over the course of the meal, over the course of the dinner, you got to talk about some of their stories, why they came over here, the differences between here and there, you know, and it's that sounded like a wonderful idea for, like, you know, integrating people into a community and not only helping with feeling like it's their own home and connecting with people in this new place, but also helping the people that are here now realize that these are like in whole people with their own stories who, like you said, left an entire home behind, and what are the implications of that for that person. And you know, I think that helped to humanize people and you know, I've seen a lot of wonderful stuff on that front, so I'm happy that that's something that interests you. I guess to leave this off, I'm looking at a few questions from my chat. One of which is, and I'm surprised that I've missed this. What has it been like to work with DGG during this whole canvassing effort? Like, could you talk more about that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, and I'll be succinct, but amazing. I frequently say, you know, volunteers make the world go round. And I knew that when I was the executive director of a nonprofit organization that was staffed mostly by volunteers. I know it even more so as a candidate now. I've got a staff of more than 30. And in particular, the folks from Omni, you know, are just such incredible people. I mean, number one, they're effective, they're experienced. But number two, man, they really believe in advocating for change and being the change that they want to see in the world. And they are. You know, I mentioned earlier, right, that we can be more effective because there's a Senate majority, right? They're why there's a Senate majority, right? If Ossoff and Warnock, if either one of those guys lost that race, it's over, right? And they did that, not single-handedly, I know, but I mean they were instrumental in that, and they're going to be instrumental in my win here in Omaha. They are essential to my efforts, and I'm just grateful for the support, truly grateful.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, the money will not be there. You can't expect to win this race through money alone. So, you know, having anybody help and having more feet on the ground and people knocking on doors, I'm sure makes like a huge difference for the campaign.
Canvassing is the most effective thing that you can do. Conversations with people, you know, and so I told you I was with a streamer last night, and that's actually where that contact came from today. So I had that email contact with that person. I hope it turns into more, you know. I look forward to meeting that person face to face, but I think, you know, face to face contact and communication with people, this is the most important stuff you can do to win an election and really to be a human.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time today. I've really appreciated all the answers and, the thoughtful remarks both on rhetoric and on policy. I hope to follow this closer and see more of that, and maybe even make it down to Omaha and knock on some doors for you.
Where are you based?
I'm in California.
Yeah, I would love it if you wanted to come check out Omaha, Nebraska, and we'd welcome you with open arms. May I make an appeal to your listeners?
Sure.
Is that all right? Yeah, I just you and I have talked about money tonight, and I'll tell you that is the hardest part of campaigning by far. And yesterday morning, I don't know if I was punishing myself or what, but I got into our donations and I did some math to see what was the average donation over a 5-day period, and it was $17. And I am in love with that. Number one, because that's a lot of $17 donations. If you look at our campaign, like we're not, it feels shoestring, it feels day to day on the budget, but we're doing some great stuff. And but that too, it's so important. We've got 46 days left in this race, something like that, until the primary. After the primary, people assure me the money will flow. You win the primary, they're like, you'll have the money, don't worry about it, you're the candidate at that point. But for the next 46 days, we're going to be fighting tooth and nail for every $17 donation we can get. So if there's anybody listening who wants to contribute, I would be grateful to have that contribution, and we will steward it well, I promise.
Awesome. And we have a link for that going on in the chat. I personally will be donating to that as soon as the stream is over as well. So if anybody wants to make that donation, again, like Marcus said here, $17 is the average, and those really add up. And if everybody just helps chip in a little bit, you'd be surprised at the difference that you can help to make. There are some deep-pocketed folks on the other side of the aisle that seem to be oh man, one of the rhetorical things that you said was somebody just wants to occupy this space, and I like that description. They're spending a lot of money simply to occupy this space when they could help change the trajectory of the city. And so if you guys are convinced at all to help Mark out, I'm sure that him and the campaign would appreciate it. And I'll continue to push that throughout the week and leading up to that primary. And then hopefully after that, we can, get you some more help from larger institutions and whatnot.
Thank you. Thank you. Book, it's really been a pleasure. And I would love to do this again anytime you want.
For sure. Sounds good. We'll do. I'll consider it. Have a good one. Bye. Awesome. Well, there you go. That's Mark. We'll go ahead and leave that meeting. And there you are. Hope you guys like that. This is the first of these sorts of things that we're doing where we're, interviewing a candidate and getting involved, politically and stuff. I know I did some coverage of the Georgia canvassing event, but super huge thank you to Mark. That was awesome. Was exceeded my expectations for answers to these questions. And even at a rhetorical level, we got to talk about some fun stuff. If I end up, pursuing canvassing efforts in Omaha, and that's something that we can end up doing, of course, I'm going to try to talk to him again. I think he seems like fun. And maybe when I'm less nervous, it will be much easier to talk with him about stuff. So, I hope I did that justice, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to stick around for a bit to talk more about what's going on there, kind of my thoughts on the responses and, stuff like that. Yeah, he was great. If I move to America, I'll vote for him. Nice. Yeah. He talks to everyone. That's what I've heard too is, on the very first day of canvassing, he tried to talk to every single person that was out there canvassing, and he spent the entire day there with the DGG people. So he's somebody who definitely realizes the help that he's getting through the DGG canvassing and through Omni, as he put it, which sounds really freaking cool. Like when he says Omni, I feel like I got butterflies a little bit. It's cool to think that that community is starting to do things in the real world and that they're actually making a change. And, think what you will of Destiny, think what you will of Steven as a man, but I really do think that this is a direction I want more content creators to move in. And I think it's an incredible thing that he's doing and continuing to do, it's awesome that through the Georgia canvassing effort, they were able to help, regain a majority in the Senate for the Democrats. Like Mark said, if that wouldn't have happened, that would have been, a huge change in terms of what the Democrats can do politically. So that was huge. And of course, it isn't just from the DGG canvassing group, but it's about joining the collective whole of people that are shifting things, right? It's about including yourself in those groups that are influencing things, to be able to say we with confidence that we help to do that, right? Instead of, those canvassers in Georgia helped to do it. To include yourself in that and to become a part of it and to become a part of change is a huge thing. And I think the more people that feel inclusive in that we that's moving towards change, the better and better the country will be for it. I mean, we like have half of the people in this country voting. We could have much more than that. Probably an even smaller amount are actually becoming politically involved beyond just their vote. And these people, for Omaha in particular, like Mark kind of joked about, are showing up to a place that is really, really snowy, really, really cold, not exactly the best weather to be going out and knocking on doors or doing much of anything aside from sitting inside. And in some states, sitting inside means like basically freezing to death because the infrastructure hasn't been able to keep up with the most recent cold wave, Like we look at a state like Texas where their elected representatives are fleeing to Cancun because it's too damn cold for their family, right? And yet their entire state is, facing this kind of ecological disaster, the likes of which, is predicted through climate change and stuff like that. So, I mean, we're being confronted with the reality of like some of our leaders being insufficient for creating the change that we need to make. And Mark seems like somebody who is interested in making all the changes that probably should be made. His city has a trajectory he disagrees with. His city has a trajectory that's looking bad for his family. And rather than running away, he's going to face it head on. And, despite the weather, despite the opposition, despite the fact that it seems like the police are not necessarily in support of Mark, he's trying to change all this stuff. And he's trying to, push forward ideas that he thinks are important. And just because somebody wants to outspend him 3-1 to try and occupy an office and push, exactly the policies and exactly the way of thinking that has led to the city's current, current status, he wants to move against that. And he saw an opportunity to, and he put his name in the hat for trying to do this. And I really, really sincerely hope that, in part because of this interview, in huge part because of the DGG canvassing effort, and in even larger part, because of Mark's outreach to his community, that he's able to make it all the way to the primary, and that he's able to win that and then garner the support of the Democratic Party, have even more financial and institutional power, and, try to even win the election and overturn the incumbent. That would be awesome. If he's able to do that, that's rad. And I'll help in whatever itty bitty way I can. Like I said, you go down the line of like, who is pushing this? It's Mark. It's all the people working with Mark. It's the Omni group. And then way, way, way at the end is little interviews like this. So I'm trying to do what I can. I haven't been able to fly out to Omaha. My dad is being kind of restrictive on COVID, and he's trying to be uber duper safe, but because of my living situation, that's just not good. I'm really trying to figure out how to get an apartment just really, really quick so I can have a place to put my shit and put the motorcycle, and then I can go out and do stuff like the Omaha thing, come back and know that I have a house that I can shower inside of. I have a house that I can cook inside of. I have a house that I can live inside of and not have to worry about exposing other people to like COVID risk and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm trying to work on day in and day out. When that's set up, then I can go out and I can do more stuff like that. But I can't do like the 10-day quarantine every single time I come back and not be able to shower or shave or like do all these other things. So, yeah, I'm trying to work on that so I can help these people out more, but this is like the least that I can do. This is a very tiny thing that I can do, is just give my platform a little bit to people who I think are actually trying to change stuff, and, you know, piggyback on movements that are much bigger than my own. Steven choosing to do this thing in Omaha, his home city, is huge. And, you know, if he's going to do that, like I've said before, I want to encourage creators doing that. So the fact that I see him doing that means I want to jump in. I want to help it. I want to lend my voice to it. And hopefully I'm able to do a little bit more than that. Hopefully I can lend my personhood to it. Hopefully I can get out there and actually knock on doors. But, you know, that's yet to be seen. We'll kind of see about that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the chat. I'm going to check in, see what's going on. Sorry, I'm all burpy. I had Monster. I've been holding in all my burps, talking with Mark. I don't want to freak him out. So, you know, like I said, this is one of the things. I can smell myself sweating too. I put on a bunch of deodorant before, and I can fucking smell myself stinking. I'm the worst, dude. I'm a fucking nervous wreck. It's such a scary thing to have to do. But yeah. If this turns out as a success, do you think other people that engage in politics will follow Destiny? Maybe. And if they don't, I want them to steal his ideas. Like, Mark joked how some of the other candidates are basically stealing his platform. And, you know, I wish that more people would do that with Steven. I wish more people would steal the ideas that he's doing, and maybe even the branding and everything else behind some of these campaigning things, and to just go do it themselves. You know, there is not competition, you know, trying to get people to do something in one place versus another place. Like, if MX Vivian Wolf organizes like IRL stuff for her fans to come out and do something in the UK, that's not going to impact anybody that's here. You know, you're not taking away from one movement for another person to do the same. I think that, you know, regardless if it's in the US or somewhere else, I think that a lot of, like, you know, online politics is kind of like crazy and whatever, but I think their hearts are in a good place, and a lot of the policies and the people that they want to protect and help are things I agree with. So I would like to see these people have their rubber meet the road and, you know, do more stuff like this, you know, wherever they live, whatever they can do, whether that's just telling people they can phone bank for some random Democratic candidate, or, you know, getting people to show up and knock on doors, which is really, really hard to do. And it's a super impactful means of activism, like Mark said, like Steven has repeated multiple times, like we've heard from Ossoff and Warnock. Everybody seems to recognize canvassing as like a huge, you know, political activism tool, whatever, to help sway these elections. Actually getting out and reaching voters who are registered Democrat or otherwise, helping to cure votes, helping to make sure that people have a plan to vote, or that their vote has been counted in some places. Like, this is huge. Like a personal anecdote, one of the weirdest things that I had to face in Georgia was talking to people like Afro Sabi, who spent their entire day curing votes. They go through votes that can't be counted for one reason or another because something is miswritten or not done properly, yada, yada. And that vote is not going to be counted unless somebody goes out and cures it, unless somebody goes out there, figures out what's wrong, and helps that person submit a ballot that can be counted. Beyond that, there's a lot of people who were registered during one election cycle and just are mysteriously not registered this cycle. There's just so many problems with messing with the ability of people to vote. For Mark to speak specifically on his campaign and his platform, he's trying to move the election back 6 months so that it happens at the same time as the presidential election. Because the more elections that we hold, A, the more money you're going to have to spend. B, it becomes more difficult logistically to manage it. And C, it means that you're going to have less voter turnout. Less people are going to turn up. If you combine the mayoral race with the race for president, you can have people that submit the presidential ballot submitting the ballot for their mayor as well, which, I mean, if it's 6 months apart, it seems like this should have been a common sense thing that was solved way earlier. But like Mark said, maybe it's because they have to take a 6-month hit on their term. Who knows? But it doesn't even seem like other progressive candidates that are running alongside him are making that a key component of their platform. So it's like, you know, that's a refreshing thing to hear. We often talk about how presidents that talk about how the Electoral College is messed up never actually change the Electoral College or push any like, you know, programs to change it once they're in office. They don't care anymore, right? because it does nothing but hurt them to change it at that point, or it does nothing, and so they don't care about it. So to hear him push that, it's like, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. This should be helpful regardless of who you're voting for, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should be down for moving that onto the ticket for the president. That makes more sense. So stuff like that is good. Mayoral turnout is so bad it's depressing, right? And like one branch of economics I really like, being somebody who's often critical of economics, is behavioral economics. I like the idea of taking a human-centered approach to decision making and looking at like, okay, if we make these policy decisions, how does that actually like affect people? Like, do people actually go out and do this? Do people actually opt in or opt out more often? Like, what is human behavior and how can we account for it? Human behavior tells me that they're not going to vote as much in the mayoral race if it's 6 months off of the largest election in the country, right? It would seem like if you wanted more people to vote and you wanted a better estimation of what the people want, that you would want to include your race at the same time that the biggest race in the country is going on. Those people are already going to be putting in a ballot. You may as well get those names on there at the same time. That seems like a common sense policy. But, you know, again, he said that other people, aside from maybe one or two that are basically copying him, are not down with that. So it's like, you know, stuff like that. It makes him seem like a much better choice for candidate. Shout yourself out, Booksmarts. Maybe I forgot to at the time. I don't think it's nearly as important to shout myself out. It doesn't really matter. Like this is all about Mark. I want you guys to get to know Mark. And if any of you are wealthy enough that you can actually go and knock on doors and you're bored, and you want something to do, even like I don't, your reasoning, I'm going to take a Vosh position here. I don't really care what your reasoning is to go out and knock on doors. Go do it. If you want to go do it, you have the means to do it. You can drive down, you can fly down, whatever. I would greatly encourage you to do it. It's a fun experience. I'm sure that as long as you have cold weather clothes, it's going to be even more fun in the snow and stuff, because I'm sure everybody will share in that misery. Everybody will make fun out of it. And, when everybody's done canvassing and they come back at the end of the day, I can imagine they're having a lot more fun and, being more jovial because they spent the whole day out in the snow. So whether you're looking for a fun time or to make like a big difference, if you have the means, I would greatly encourage you to go try this. It's really, really fun. I stayed, like I said, I got there a day early in Georgia. I stayed I think a day or two later. I spent a lot of time in Georgia during that canvassing effort, and people had so much fun there. Whether it was knocking on doors and feeling really good and feeling like you're a part of some kind of bigger change, or whether that was just, meeting with the people in the beginning and the end of the day, seeing that holy shit, there's so many people in this convention hall right now. Wow. Like Stephen is giving a speech in front of like a whole banquet hall full of people. And there's an even bigger crowd of people outside of the banquet hall. Like, seeing so many people that are there to do one thing, it's impactful in a way that's difficult to describe. If you guys saw the stream that I did while I was out there, you saw how much that impacted me. I hope it can impact you guys in some sort of way. And if, like I said, if you're on the fence for doing something like this and you're looking for the Booksmart seal of approval or the Booksmart's recommendation, I would say go and do it. It's going to be worth it. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to meet a lot of like-minded people, and it's going to be fun. So that's my my spiel on it. How much of the economic literature have you read regarding what? Regarding behavioral economics? I don't read anything. The limit of my kind of experience with behavioral economics is podcasts and stuff, if I'm being wholly honest with you. I don't read literature on it. I really appreciate the speakers in that area. Even people from boring ass institutions like the World Bank, I feel like they have such interesting things to say, and that they say things in a way that's not boring. And maybe it's just because I'm interested in behavioral science, and that's most of what my focus was in my psychology work. Maybe it's because of that, but I find it personally fascinating to hear this kind of meeting of the minds between economic policy, economic ideas, and the actual way that people behave in the real world. And how can we reconcile these two things? How can we talk about things outside of just what a rational actor is? How can we actually go out there and look at, well, okay, this is a rational actor, but what does an actual person do? Like, an actual person doesn't like maximize everything, though. An actual person makes mistakes. An actual person is lazy. That's why I like behavioral economics, because it kind of takes that into account and then comes up with policy that's kind of built around the everyday person and how they actually interface with these, financial systems and institutions. Booksmarts doesn't read theory. No, not really, bro. Let's see. Let me catch up. Wait, shout outs are 8K Omega lol genius. What do you think are some pitfalls that might get him in general, or does he seem solid rhetorically or politically? I don't know if it's good to even point that out, but if I had to say something, I think that he should push those podcasts and stuff more. Sajin's in the chat, or Sajin is in the chat. Christian is in the chat. One thing that would have been more helpful was to know, or to have the donation link, as well as like more information about his podcast, because I think we could have incorporated that a bit more. And it sounds like he discusses these policy things that I'm interested in at length in the podcast. Though I was aware of the podcast and I did see some of it, I did look at it in prep for the interview. I think pushing that more may have been better, because he's somebody who is really good at talking. I joked about this with him, but some of the other candidates who are running for the same position are not good at talking at all, and they run into like rhetorical pitfalls much more than Mark does. Like, rhetorically, I don't have a ton of advice for Mark. I think he's doing a fine job. I think other people who he is running against actually are doing a much worse job, and they probably need a book smarts in their corner, because when you're saying things like, oh, I never ride transportation, but I rode this time and I saw that people were using it for all sorts of things. And, it's like, well, that comes off really bad when everybody around you kind of used it habitually, or, has used it since they were a kid, or things like this. Like, you seem more disconnected by saying that you're trying to be connected. So I would say there's more shortfalls or pitfalls that other candidates are running into, more so than Mark. It's all there, BB. Yeah, Gudgel for mayor, guys. I'm going to create some commands for that after the stream. I'm going to add some commands, and we'll be pushing that throughout the week. And again, hopefully we get to talk with Mark again. It would be cool to do a follow-up if I have more context to what he's up to, or if I'm able to catch more of these podcasts to give him some, follow-up questions about it. He mentioned he's working 18-hour days on this. I mean, this is Mark's life right now, is just like trying to win this. So I'm sure he wouldn't mind doing another 30-minute or whatever talk with me. And, if I see reason to, and if I see things that we could talk about, I'll prep that and we'll have another one of those. This may not be the last time that you see Mark on the channel. Just out of touch. Yeah, some of the people came off out of touch. If you add commands, you should put it in your stream title so newcomers can check it. Yeah, for sure. I think we'll be more prep for the next interview, if there is one, for sure. I'm going to put commands and things like that in the title. Check out r/Omaha to also keep up with the Gudgel news in a subreddit friendly fashion. There you go. So there's also that. But yeah, another thing, the link is floating around in the chat. If you can't make it to this stuff, or if you're not interested enough to do that, you're afraid of the snow, yada yada, or you're like me and you can't deal with the COVID thing right now because of your living situation. If you have the funds to put behind this, you can always donate. I think that it's an Act Blue link that's floating around in the chat. Somebody else can post that right now, but yeah, I would recommend that you do that too. You can always donate to the cause. There were a lot of people for the Georgia race who donated to Stephen, or donated to organizations related to what they were doing, and that was super helpful. There were people that made it possible for him to afford hotel rooms for everybody and other things, offsetting some of the costs that these candidates have to absorb or these organizers have to absorb is super helpful. And if you want to do more research into a group that's on the ground aside from Omni or aside from Mark that you want to give to that is supporting this, there are lots of them. There are other groups that are out there. So, you can do your research if you want to and put your money where you'd like accordingly, but there is a link in there that should go directly to the campaign. So there you go. Will you go over those interviews of political candidates like you do with debates in the future? Probably not, just because I've talked about this before. My political knowledge is lacking. My political understanding is lacking. I don't understand the mechanisms of power and the levers and how they work. And so I'd rather leave that up to other people. I feel like without being able to challenge or understand things at the political level, there is a whole dimension I'd be missing in reviews of those conversations, and therefore I'm not super comfortable doing them. Now, if I had the knowledge and experience IRI had, then I would be totally fine with it because I can cover both the rhetorical dimension and the political dimension and kind of hold both at the same time. So if somebody is saying something, it sounds really good, but it's BS because you can't actually do that in the mayoral position. I want to be able to call that out. I don't want to be like, oh, this is great rhetoric from so-and-so who's saying that they could do X, Y, and Z when X, Y, and Z are literally impossible as a mayor, right? These would be blunders I would be very prone to walking into because I don't understand that stuff nearly enough. Now, if IRI or somebody else that I respect the political intellect of were to reach out and they want to collaborate with me on a review of some of these panels, I would be 110% down for that. My DMs are open. Anybody can hop in there and make the offer. If you wanted to do that, I would be totally down. But missing that political dimension is, I would think, harmful to my audience, if anything. To cover something without that would be irresponsible, in my opinion. But yeah, if any other creators want to team up for that, I would be down. That would be helpful. And like, it's difficult to know this for sure, but I wonder if that would also help Mark in a huge way. That if there was something that went viral in Omaha about these different candidates and looking through their things and finding that Mark was better than other people, not only at the rhetorical level, but at the political level in terms of how he's talking about things and the substance of his plans, then that would be huge. Like, if we were to do prep before some of these talks and look at what are the other candidates' websites, what are they actually planning on doing, because something that Mark alluded to, and he's very careful with some of these things, but one thing that he alluded to was that other people on their pages and stuff are putting forth ideas and not policies. Like, they don't have the means of funding the things that they're putting forward, or they don't know how they're actually going to achieve those things. And I think weeding out those people immediately would be why somebody like IRI would be super helpful to have on a review like that, because we could immediately be like, well, while rhetorically this person comes off strong, they literally don't have a plan for this. Like, this is literally not possible, or their website has absolutely no information on how they would do this, right? And then kind of contrasting that with some of these podcasts that Mark is doing where he's explaining these things and talking about the groups that he's working with and all of that, I think would be an even bigger help to him and make him look even better. So, that's something I would consider. All right, let me catch up with the chat a little bit more. Will you go over okay, I already got that. Let's see. Do you find Maslow's pyramid to be accurate in your experience? I mean, somewhat, sure, but not in an order. It's not in a sequential order. I think you handled those different things at different times. Like, I think that food, shelter, and security can be lacking, and yet you can be personally fulfilled in your role, right? Like, oh man, this is like a tough segue, but like when Mark is talking about these refugees, I think that their security, their food, their all of these things at the lower end of the pyramid could be threatened or could be in question, and it could be like weighing on their mind. But I wonder if at the top of the pyramid, in terms of self-realization and realizing like who you ought to be in this moment and living by it, maybe what Dr. K would call dharma, I feel like they understand dharma and they're living it So while they're accomplishing what's at the tip of the pyramid, they may be lacking what's at the base, right? I think that these things can happen at different times and you don't actually follow that in that order. I think that's something that Maslow and people after him actually mention as well, is that the one thing about the pyramid is that it implies that there is an order to things that people don't actually follow, and that's not actually how life plays out. So that would be the one criticism with the pyramid. Let's see. Okay, how much of the economic in Washington? Shout yourself out. I sent you a Twitter message about some consulting. Oh, whoa, I missed a big fucking tip. Good God, Central Celery, thank you. Holy shit. My bad. I've been so focused on this, and the chat box isn't working among other things in OBS right now. But thank you so much. That's super awesome. I don't think that will. It seems to be a huge personal sacrifice. Yada yada. What do you? He's an impressive speaker and rhetorician. I would agree. Trying to find more questions. What's the best way to support you? Oh, and then Central Celery donated. Thank you. Yeah, the best way to support me would be through donations if you want to, but this is more so like a Mark-focused thing. Today is a Mark-focused thing. If you want to donate to Mark and his team and kind of help with that Omaha race, again, the links are floating through the chat. If you want to support me, that's Patreon, that's Twitch. The way that takes the least amount of money from the amount that you're giving me would be PayPal. That's going to be, and you can do ! Donation or something like that. Dono to get that. Let's see. I'm trying to find more older questions, so I'm scrolling up through the chat. Booksmarts is glowing today. Interesting. The consequences of climate change in Texas will never be the same. What? This was a really good interview. I wish I knew how progressive people are in Omaha about cops specifically. Yeah. Oh, if we're talking about things that I'm worried about with Mark, the one thing that I am worried about is that he doesn't seem to have the support of the police at all. Because I get the feeling that there's very little that he can do with the police department. He can create the citizen review board, but it feels like the teeth of that board are dependent on legal things that are outside of his control. So while he can establish these sorts of organizations to try and hold the police accountable or give the citizens some say in what's going on, ultimately they're giving recommendations. Ultimately they're not as powerful, I'm sure, as he would want them to be. So that's one thing. And then not having the outspoken support of the police and having the police support the incumbent so much, that must be a difficult situation for him to be in. And frankly, for any of the candidates on his side of the aisle, I'm sure that's something that will be a struggle. And that I think is the most difficult. One of the most difficult things that I'm hearing for him is just the whole situation with the police. Because it seems like there's not a ton that he can do. They've already signed a new deal with the police union that goes on for 5 years. He hasn't had the opportunity to reach out to a ton of police officers or the union. And I have a sneaking suspicion that you have to be able to work with those institutions in order to implement change, because a lot of the change is something they get to choose, right? They seem to be independent in a lot of regards, and they're able to make their own decisions, and they've secured enough political and institutional power that they can kind of make their own shots about things, no pun intended. And so I think one of the most difficult things is going to be working with the police, it sounds like. Though, if he wins this primary, they're going to have to take him more seriously. Maybe he'll be able to talk to more people at that point. And furthermore, if he wins the election as a whole, obviously, I would imagine he would have a better opportunity of working with the police, then they'd have to take him a little bit more seriously. But I would say that's one thing I'm worried about listening to him, is just that relationship with the police department. Though, like he said, and he put it into perspective, that's 900 people out of the thousands that are a part of his constituency. So, I think ultimately he needs to focus on all of the people that are kind of subjected to the police, and he needs to work with other segments of the community that are more willing to support progressive candidates and have their voice heard. So, that's one thing that I would say. I'm not saying that unions are bad. That's not what I'm saying. As a man who I'm sure is a part of the teachers union, I'm sure Mark also wouldn't say that unions are bad. So I don't think that's something either of us think. Although I have memed about unions in the past pretty hard. So more like Maslow's connect the dots. Well, I mean, I think Maslow has I think he's evaluated the things in terms of like difficulty and how much they help your life. I think that you achieve the thing on the top of the pyramid, and that's pretty fucking cozy. But in the things at the bottom, you for sure need, or they're going to impact your life in a lot of fucking ways. So I don't know. I just think that the pyramid can give people the wrong idea of like the order in which things should be achieved, right? Some people may think it's a video game and they have to start from the bottom and go to the top, not realizing that different things will fall into and out of security as you're going through it. Actually, I think security is one of the steps, so maybe not the best terminology there, but you're achieving different parts of that pyramid at different points in life, and it doesn't follow some chronological order. Let's see here. Will you ever, so that's the plan with all this stuff. Anywho, I didn't have any other plans for today, so I think that's going to be it. Again, if you guys want to support Mark, I'm going to put links to that in the YouTube video version of this. It's going to be in the description of the YouTube video. I'm going to go edit that right now. But yeah, I'm sure he appreciates any kind of help. This is a small candidate in, what is it, like the 42nd or something largest city in the United States. If you want to help him out, I'm sure he would appreciate it, in whatever way, whether that's flying out and actually knocking on doors, doing phone banking, or donating. There's plenty of ways that you could support. And beyond that, I want to take a second, even if it takes away from the campaign specifically, to say that, find what it is around you that you want to fix, right? Mark was just a school teacher. He was a school teacher for 17 years, right? And then he decided that he wanted to get into politics and change the trajectory of his city. He saw a problem and he sought to fix it, right? He dedicated 18 hours a day of his life to try and make this happen, right? Knowing that he's going to be outspent 3-1, knowing that the incumbents have a unique relationship with the police department, knowing that he's going to face all these kinds of, adversity. And he's still going to try and do that, right? That could be you. There's nothing to stop you from doing that where you live, unless your government is shit, then of course. But even then, that's more of a reason that you should probably be focused on the politics of where you live. So if you want to make change, this is the Book Smarts call out to do it, if you have a homeless problem where you live and you want to kind of contribute to that, there are kitchens that you could go help out at. If you live by a beach, there are cleanup efforts that you can do. There's a lot of simple things. And I think once you get your foot in the door and once you meet some of these groups that do that stuff, then you can keep doing it. Like one thing that I do once the weather gets better in Huntington, and that I have done for at least a couple of years now, is go and help clean up the wetlands and go and help clean up the beach. And you meet a lot of cool people there that are doing other stuff. Like they'll say, hey, if you like doing this cleanup effort, we're going to go knock doors for so-and-so next week. Or, hey, if you like this, we're having a meeting between all of the activists in the area over this. That would be really cool if you could make it. Hey, if you like this, we're going up to Big Bear to do this kind of thing. Like if you want to come, you can carpool with us. The kinds of people that actually go out and do stuff in their community and try to make it better tend to be the kinds of people that do a lot of other stuff along those lines. Mark being somebody who's going for, the mayoral position in his city, is somebody that knows a lot about restaurants and he knows a lot about local cuisine, right? And he's even bringing that as a policy in his platform for mayor. So, people that have a connection to where they live are people who know a lot about that place. And you'd be surprised at what you can get out of being friends with these people, or what you can get out of establishing connections to other people that care about the place that you live. I got to respect Huntington Beach a lot more by talking to people that are in love with the city and love its people and love what it could be. Right. And I think that can also give you a better outlook on life more generally. being surrounded by people that are hopeful in both their endeavors and endeavors at a larger scale to improve things is going to have a lot more positive of an impact on your outlook than hanging out with people on the internet that do nothing but complain or do nothing but kind of sit at home and ruminate over, all the times that they weren't able to help or all the things that have become awful that they feel powerless to change, right? And I think that you guys have to get away from that. You guys have to realize at some level that those people are having a negative impact on your life and on your perspective on the world. And they're forcing you to look at things in such a negative way that you're losing years of your life to these people. You're losing every moment that you spend thinking that something isn't possible, every moment that you spend thinking things are doomed, right? It's so difficult to weigh how negative those impacts are on you, but I would really encourage you to rethink the people that you surround yourself with. One thing that you've seen me have to do as a streamer very publicly is change the people whom I interact with on stream and off stream, right? I'm hanging out with people who I think are much more positive influences on me and who are much more positive in general so that I feel more positive day in and day out. I had to cut out people that are nothing but negative, that do nothing but infight, that do nothing but like cause problems, because that then becomes an aspect of my own life. There's a Spanish phrase that I'm not going to be able to recollect perfectly, but it's something along the lines of you start swinging in the trees with the monkeys and before long you become one. You can't kind of discern you from the monkeys. And I think that that's something that we want to keep in mind on Twitch and on the internet. The more that you surround yourself with people who are negative Nancy's, who just think that nothing can be fixed, with people that kind of just shit on other people that are trying to do good things, or shit on people that are trying to kind of, take responsibility for the way that things are and hold themselves to account to do more. When you follow people that are like that and encourage that, that rubs off on you in a way that's difficult to explain. And though you may like a creator for how funny they are or how positive they are in other regards, start to look out for things like this, because they start to have an impact on you, whether you can tell that or not. And they start to kind of limit what you think you can do in the world. And I think that that's a disastrous thing that's happened to a lot of people that I've spoken with. And like I've seen that just in communication stuff. Like people think that Steven and the Debate Bro way of doing things is the only way to change people's mind or confront adversity in thought, right? And I came on here and I said, no, that's not the case. That's not the way I talk to anybody in real life. Like I try not to do it this way because it's just, that's not how it works, right? When I'm talking to somebody at work and I only have a little bit of time to try to change their mind about something, that's not the way that I go about trying to do it. You have to think about rhetoric. You have to think about optics. You have to think about the way that you're being perceived. And that was a message that resonated with people because it just didn't exist on the platform, right? And I think that like I can only do so much to try to create a place for that and to try and facilitate that kind of thinking because I don't see it exist. But you guys have to take some responsibility for surrounding yourself with creators and with people who are impacting your way of thinking, right? In a negative way. So choosing whether or not to watch people that are going to further this negative thinking for yourself is something you should look at. Are there creators you're watching every day that make you feel like the world is doomed? Are there creators you watch every day that give you a sense of kind of finality to things and that everything is the way it's going to be and there's so little you can do as an individual, you may as well do nothing? I see a lot of people push that idea that there's so little you could do as an individual, you may as well do nothing. And whether they mean to say that explicitly or implicitly through the way they talk about how other people are doing things or the decisions other people are making to impact change, start to listen for that in people. Because we're going to have another Trump. We're going to have more awful politicians. We're going to have more people that don't care about climate change or other things that are important if you continue to allow people like that into your life and stifle your ability to make change, right? Because if you want to take a stoic kind of view on things, you only have control over your decisions. And furthermore, beyond the stoic kind of perspective, you can be an influence to the people around you, and you can be a positive influence to the people around you. And the only way to do that is to live the things that you say you're going to do, right? Or live the things that you know ought to be done. So like beyond just doing what you can do, being open with that, you know, to other people and saying, hey, I volunteer at a soup kitchen every weekend, or hey, you know, I go out and I volunteer at a shelter, you know, every Thursday, or hey, on my day off on Wednesdays, I go in early morning to the beach and I help clean it up. Little things like this can inspire people to not only engage in what you're doing, but maybe something they see in their own life. Like I keep mentioning beach cleanup because it's something I see every time I drive by PCH. When I'm on the motorcycle, I can see that other people are doing that thing, right? And I'm sure thousands of people that live where I live pass by the beach and see people cleaning it. But how many have the seed planted in their mind to think, I want to get involved with that, right? And that seed comes from knowing other people that are doing that. That seed comes from knowing that DGG is out in the freezing cold in Omaha right now trying to canvas. It comes from knowing that, you know, my favorite creator went ahead and spent tens of thousands of dollars to try and sponsor people to come out and help in Georgia and flip the Senate, right? Like, these little things plant seeds in your mind. And then when you see opportunities, you know, we talk about perspective theory a lot. They will come into focus as your light passes over them, right? If you're in a dark room, like my perspective theory says, and you can only look at so many points at once, when you're driving by and you see the people picking up trash on the side of the freeway or see people picking up trash on the beach, maybe instead of thinking like, oh, wow, that's crazy, those people are volunteering, you think, that's cool. I wonder how long like a shift is. I wonder how easy that is. I wonder who they're with, right? Your way of thinking changes around activism, and it changes around things. And instead of othering those people from yourself, you're including them, you're overlapping them, you feel a part of it. Getting back to what I said at the beginning of this rant, it's a we thing. Being able to include yourself in a we is super duper good. That's something Mark said as well, right? In the way that he's trying to talk about stuff, and other people who have been inspirations to him rhetorically. He likes the not me, us, slogan, stuff like that. And he tries to live that in his own campaign. And I'm just saying you should try to live that in your own life. Try to make a we, try to become a part of the stuff that's going on around you and be more cognizant of it. Try to be aware of the people who are impacting change every day, despite you being aware of it or not. And, you know, become a part of it because it feels good. And it's something that's contagious. Yeah. All right. People copy their surroundings. This can be used for good, for sure. The debate bro way isn't real life. That is true. I have friends like that. They worry me a lot. Yeah, he's right. I used to meme hard before 2016, but then I realized that people really need to take things more seriously. Yeah, and you can't other it, right? You can't say other people need to take it more seriously. You have to be like, well, fuck, we have to take this more seriously. And as a part of that, I need to take it more seriously. What can I do, right? And then beyond that, like, how can I make that clear to other people that I'm taking this step? And how can I make it easier for the people around me to then also follow me in taking those first steps, right? Like, if you're going to go out somewhere and you end up deciding, all right, Bookfucker was talking about fucking beach cleanup and I live by a beautiful beach and I'm going to I Googled it. I Googled beach cleanup, fucking Miami Beach Google is freaking out. Be like, hey, I Googled, beach cleanup, Miami Beach, whatever, and I found something. Beyond that, fill up your car. You're heading down there in a fucking SUV. You got a lot of seats behind you, and you got a lot of friends in your phone book. Call people up. Hey, what the fuck are you doing today? You want to go to the beach? Hell yeah. All right, I'll pick you up. Don't even worry about it. Pick all of them up and dupe them into fucking going and doing something at the beach. Like you have a bunch of space in your car. I mean, if you're taking a bus, like plan the route and be like, hey, we're stopping by your house. Choo choo. We're going to the beach, motherfucker. We're going to go clean shit up. We're going to go knock on doors for fucking Mark Gravel. I'm heading out. I'm doing a big road trip. You want to do it? It'll be fun. Like, and you'll be doing something that's cool, whatever, try to include the people in your life in it. One of the big things that I tried pushing when we were in Georgia and we were checking that everybody had a plan to vote was figuring out, oh, okay, you're going to go drive in to vote. Is your car full? What do you mean is my car full? Well, I mean, did you fill up all the seats? Like, being COVID safe, of course, but did you fill up all the seats in your car? Like, are you having a full car of people driving out there? well, no, I'm just taking my mom and me. Like, oh, okay. Does your neighbor, are they going? You know, I just knocked on their door and they said they're going too. Are you guys going to carpool together? Figuring out how to fill up other spots in that car and make sure other people are given that same opportunity that you're going to, you know, go do yourself is helpful as well. And it's difficult to like explain how much of a difference it can make for you to like just offer to your friends, hey, I am already doing this thing. Do you want to piggyback on it? Piggybacking is a lot easier. If Steven told all the other streamers to organize their own events in places, like I kind of advocate that he do a little bit more, there are going to be fewer people that actually take him up on it, as if he would have said, compared to if he said, I'm going to do this already, you're welcome to come, right? Again, here's another like Spanish phrase that I'm not going to be able to recollect in Spanish, but it's something along the lines of nobody needs a ride until the donkey comes through town. Nobody needs to go anywhere until all of a sudden I'm going somewhere, right? Like nobody needs a ride anywhere until the donkey comes rolling through the village, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to jump on the back, and everybody needs a ride all of a sudden, right? But that is true. That is human nature. You know, nobody's interested in going canvassing or doing anything until you say that you're going, and then all of a sudden, well, if you're already driving there and you're already going to do it, and you already have the plan, and you're already gonna, you know, stop and get food and yada yada, I can go. Sure, that's easy, right? But to kind of put everything on you, and you need to use your own car and you need to do everything yourself, it becomes a lot less likely that people are going to do it. That's how humans behave. So, you know, keep that in mind. It's difficult to measure how much you could do, but little things like that, you're just opening opportunities for other people to do the same. Booksmarts is right. Volunteering keeps you grounded and lets you channel frustration towards a productive cause. That is another helpful thing too, is that you get frustrated looking at shit online, but you know that you're doing the best that you could do. And, you know, you can match your frustration level to your activism level, right? Afro Sabi is somebody who seems deeply frustrated with with some of the systems that exist in this world and some of the people that are a part of them. But Afro Sabi directs all of that frustration, all of that energy into positive change. If you look at her Twitter, it's all about activism, all about doing this stuff. It's about that and her dogs. Those seem to be like the loves of her life. But you know, she's always out and doing stuff. She's encouraging other people to do stuff. She's focusing and channeling all of that energy into something that's productive and something that's actually going to turn into something. She's not just spinning her wheels for no apparent reason. And when you spend all day spinning your wheels for no apparent reason on Twitter or on the chat room of somebody's fucking Twitch stream, like, I don't know if you realize how depressed that makes you, or how angsty that makes you, or how edgy that makes you. Like, it's making you edgy and angsty because there's a whole half of your brain that never gets to talk and just watches all of the behavior that you do, and it has no say over your actions. And it has to sit there and watch you fucking waste all your time on the computer and do absolutely nothing. And yet you're so compelled by these issues, and you actually are upset by them, and you actually do wish that they could change, but you're focusing all that energy into spinning a wheel that does nothing. You're clicking a button that does nothing but give you dopamine. You're clicking keys that are doing nothing for the cause that you want to support. And that part of your brain that's just quiet and watching would be so satisfied at a much deeper level if you were to just get involved with stuff and you actually went out and did stuff. Maybe then you would be able to fall asleep quicker. Maybe then you would be less stressed. Maybe then you would like have all these other positive things that would follow because you feel better about your day to day and what you're choosing to do with your time, right? It's very difficult to look at all the activism you did and feel like all of it was for nothing. It's very, very easy to look at all the time you spent on Twitter or in Twitch chat rooms that eventually led to nothing. And though it may hurt my viewership, I will say, miss my stream if you have to. The fucking VODs are made available for this purpose. If my fucking stream overlaps with the opportunity to go out and clean a beach, or the opportunity to go out and canvas, or the opportunity to go knock on doors or do something positive, skip it, bro. Skip it. And know that I would be happy about that. Skip my shit and go do something important, because you will feel even better about relaxing and enjoying a Booksmart stream if you actually did something with the rest of your time, right? Like, you can crack a beer and sit back and enjoy your boy roasting people because you already did what you could do. You put in your time, right? and you encourage the people around you to do it. You did the best that you could, and you did the most that you could, and you can rest easy knowing that's more than 90% of the people you interact with online. And I think that's great. I think that gives you a confidence and a peace of mind that's difficult to put a number on, to just look at all these other people freaking out and be like, well, you know, I agree. Shit's fucked. But you know what? At least I got out there and did something about it, right? Like, you know, I don't have to worry about this stuff beyond a reasonable extent because I'm actually going out there and trying to do stuff, right? There's a confidence behind all of those canvassers that went to the first event that I've noticed in their speech online. They feel much more willing to be like, no, I did shit, right? And it comes off in their tweets, it comes off in their messages, and it comes off in just generally how they carry themselves, right? Because it does that. It inspires that kind of feeling in you, and it makes you feel, you know, better, I would say. Man, no one wants to go to Walmart and window shop until someone says, hey, I'm going to Walmart to just look at stuff and walk around, not these. Afro Sabi seems very well adjusted. She is. This is the tip of the pyramid stuff. Yeah, if you were still on the Maslow's thing, like this is pretty big. See the part with his daughter if he could download the VOD. Oh, okay. Mark is such a cutie pie about his daughter. He actually wants the clip with his daughter coming into the frame. So after the stream, I'll try and I have so many things I have to do after this stream. I need to do that. Send clip. I need to add links to the description, right? For the donations and stuff. I'll do that. Yeah, I think that's it though. I'm pretty sure this is everything that I need to do today. And boy, am I going to feel a lot better about this stream than I do most of like the Destiny review streams and whatever. I feel like this is a better use of my platform. And I'll try to incorporate stuff like this into what I do a lot more. And again, I'm limited in what I can do locally because of the COVID thing and because I'm like half living with my dad in the van and stuff. So like to be respectful to him, I'm trying to be more COVID safe than I would be probably if I had my own house and there wasn't like ramifications for like family members and stuff like that. I would be able to take more risks at the benefit of my community. And I plan to do that once I get a place. So, you know, if you want to support the stream before we go, the best way to do that is the donation link, which you can get through !dono. You could also support in the Patreon, which is really helpful because it tells me how much monthly income I'm making, and I can kind of plan my life around that. And then, of course, on Twitch, if you have Amazon Prime, you get a free sub every month. And you can spend just $5 and pay for subs for either yourself or other people. And I've noticed more people kind of doing the sub, the tier 2 and tier 3. I need to make a tier 3 emote. I'm going to reallocate my my capitalist powers, the capital I have access to, and I'm going to give that to my sister to make more emotes. My sister was the artist that was responsible for my Twitter profile picture, which I've gotten some compliments about, and I'm going to put her to work on other kinds of emotes and stuff for the channel, other kind of artwork as well. Maybe even some of the tier pictures on Patreon, among other things. So expect to see that in the future. Anywho, kind of getting off topic here. If anybody, you know, wants to help out Mark, again, those descriptions, those links are going to be in the description. Thanks to everybody who stopped by. I'm going to find a place to put the Twitch chat for the night, and then we'll be good to go. Let's see. Where are we going to go? Who should we raid into? That is the real question. Lots of options here. I'm thinking. Where are we going to go? Where do you guys want to go? Great stream, Book. Thanks, Central. I appreciate it. I also appreciate the donation. That helps out a lot. Where do you guys want to go? I'm kind of torn between Dylan Burns and Destiny. I know Destiny doesn't necessarily need the raids, but I think it would be funny to raid Destiny. It looks like Dylan's talking to conservatives, so maybe Destiny then. I don't know. Let's just raid Destiny. That'd be kind of funny. /raid. Destiny. There we are. Okay. Have a good time. You guys know who Destiny is. Tell him thank you about all the campaigning stuff. I don't know if he reads YouTube chat, but yeah, I mean, you can jump into destiny.gg and say the same stuff. Tell him thank you. I appreciate that he puts the time and effort into stuff like that because he really doesn't have to. And I'm sure it doesn't necessarily help him with the view count or anything else. So, I mean, he's taking costs that I don't think other streamers would take. So I appreciate that from him. Again, think what you will of the guy, disagree or agree with him on whatever, but this is like a very clearly positive thing that he's doing. And I think we should support and encourage him to continue doing it because he could wake up tomorrow and decide it's not worth his time anymore. And I think we can contribute to the opposite decision being the case, for him to wake up every morning and realize that this is something he should continue to do. Have a good time, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Okay, and to everybody on the YouTube, I'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoy the VOD, and I'll go ahead and add all that stuff to the